All right, let's pull over so he can pass.
Okay.
An ambulance siren is one of those sounds you just can't ignore, right?
No, you can't. I mean, it's piercing. You hear it coming a long way off. You know what other sound you just can't ignore, Ray?
What?
A baby crying.
Oh, yes, right. Another piercing sound that demands your attention. It's been a bunch of years since I've had a baby in my life.
Sure.
I'll never forget waking up to those cries at all hours of the day and night.
Yeah, me too. Okay, we'll make a right up here onto Meadow Lane. And we can pull over anywhere there's room just ahead.
Okay, well, what brings us to Meadow Lane in Berlin, Connecticut, Jeff?
Ray, we're searching for a house haunted by the cries of a ghostly infant. Hello, I'm Jeff Belanger, and welcome to episode 270 of the New England Legends podcast.
And I'm Ray Auger. Thanks for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England, one story at a time. We're a community of legend seekers, always on the hunt for ghosts, monsters, roadside oddities, and all the amazing weirdness that makes New England like no other place.
We can't do what we do without you, so thanks for being part of this. Please like and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, because it's free, and we don't want you to miss any of the weirdness. We also appreciate it when you share our episodes on your social media. It helps a lot.
All right, before we go searching for this haunted house in Berlin, Connecticut, we want to take just a minute to tell you about our sponsor, New Audi Herbals.
Ray, I love the fall.
Oh, yeah, my favorite season, too.
I mean, the weather's getting colder, the trees are exploding into color, we're dressing warmer, and of course, sipping more tea.
I'm going to share something that's not a secret at all here.
What's that?
Well, Jeff, we talk a lot.
We do. I mean, you're on the radio for hours every morning. I'm speaking in front of audiences every night. And we, of course, record our adventures for this podcast.
Now, to keep my throat warmed up, I love sipping honey and spice tea from New Audi Herbals each morning. It's just sweet enough to be a treat, and it keeps me warm and toasty as the temperatures drop.
That's one of my favorites, too. And it's still too early to talk about New Audi Herbals Christmas tea, right?
Yeah, you did it again.
I did, didn't I? I'm really enjoying their new blueberry cinnamon tea each morning and peach Nilla at night because it's caffeine free. Instead of reaching for cookies at night, Ray, I'm reaching for peach Nilla. It satisfies my sweet tooth and gives me a much needed treat after a long day.
New Audi Herbals has so many great products made by hand and have become part of my daily life. Their soaps, balms, essential oils, and bath salts have made a difference, and we think it'll make a difference for you too.
Let New Audi Herbals help support your healthy lifestyle. Check out the New Audi Herbals website to see all of their great products, and you get 20% off your order when you use the promo code LEGENDS20 at checkout. Visit newaudiherbals.com. That's NUWATI herbals with an S.com.
So, Meadow Lane in Berlin is pretty residential.
Yeah, it is. Neighborhoods everywhere.
There's some nice homes on this street. Some of them look pretty expensive and fairly new.
Yeah.
A lot of these homes couldn't be more than 10, 15 years old. Plus, there's plenty of developed neighborhoods off of Meadow Lane.
Very true. So the house we're looking for is no longer here, but it was somewhere close by this spot at one point. To find it, let's head back to 1888.
It's late October of 1888 here in Berlin, Connecticut. Grover Cleveland is president, and he's facing a tough re-election campaign against challenger Benjamin Harrison. But the election is still a few weeks away. Right now, folks in Berlin are discussing politics, sure, but the real buzz going around is about a house they say is haunted.
The house is situated on the Blair property near Belcher Brook, right near the ruins of the old Blair factory that burned down just 3 years ago back in 1885. The house is average for this region, a typical colonial home that's been here for a while.
And people have been whispering about this house being haunted for a while, too, at least for the last several years. The reason we're here today is because Berlin butcher James North told us about the haunt. He said he was the last person to live inside, but had to move out because it's so haunted.
James may have been the last to live here, but it was Frank Burt who first noticed the strange activity inside. They say he moved out because of it, too. In fact, no one has stayed in here very long. Let's go inside and take a look around. Hey, light that lantern over there.
All right.
Yeah, that's better.
Now, this house seems pretty normal to me. It's empty except for a few boxes and old chairs that no one wants. Empty old houses are always a little creepy, Jeff.
Yeah, they are dusty and empty and quiet. Really quiet right now, but from what I'm told, we're going to have to settle in for the evening because the house is most active in the wee hours of the morning.
All right. Well, I guess we should get comfortable then.
What time do you think it is, Ray?
Looks like it's just after midnight.
Man, the house feels different now, doesn't it? I mean, almost too quiet.
Whoa. I heard that.
Did you hear? What is that? Yeah.
Wow. Sounds like a baby crying.
There's no one in the house except the two of us.
Doesn't it sound like it's coming from the upstairs?
Yeah, let's go look.
I think it's coming from that bedroom over there.
Whoa, it stopped.
The rooms are all empty up here. Wait, I hear it again. Well, now it sounds like it's coming from downstairs.
It just stopped again. Oh, hey, why is the front door open?
I have no idea. I'm positive it was shut before.
This is starting to freak me out.
Yeah, me too. All right, let's get out of here. Head back into town.
Okay, I caught James North on his way to work this morning. He told me when he was living in the house, he would double check to make sure the doors were securely closed when he went to sleep. And in the morning, he'd wake up to find some of them open. This happened more than once. Combine that with the ghostly crying of the infant, and it was more than he could take to live there.
I found out after Frank Burt moved out that the house was sold to the Webster family, who didn't last very long before they moved out. They sold it to James North, who lived there with his brother, who also verified the place is haunted.
Man, a lot of people seem to know about this house. Let's head over to the old tavern in town and talk to some of the locals.
Excuse me, do you know anything about the old Blair house by Belcher Brook? No?
Do you know anything about the Blair property? We're checking into it.
Okay, I just spoke to one of the old-timers who said the place was once a house of ill repute back when it serviced men who worked at the factory. He said he heard a baby was murdered inside to cover up an affair.
Wow.
Yeah, that would have been about 25 years ago.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the reason everyone around here knows it's haunted. Those ghostly cries would chill anyone who hears them. And that will bring us back to today.
I'm not sure there's anything as frightening as ghostly children and babies.
I agree. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and I can't imagine anything worse than the loss of a child. And to hear those cries in your home when you don't have any children living there?
Nope. I'd be out in 2 minute stops.
Yeah, I get it. So everything we know about this story comes from a March 3rd, 1888 newspaper article from the Meriden Daily Republican newspaper.
Now, the headline reads, Berlin's Haunted House, a ghostly baby that keeps up a continuous crying.
Those are the kind of headlines that are tough for us to pass up. All we had to go on as far as the location is a line in the article that said the house was, quote, the old Blair property. So we reached out to the Berlin, Connecticut Historical Society, and they were kind enough to send us an old map that marked where the old Blair factory was located, north of Meadow Lane and near Belcher Brook.
The Berlin Historical Society also sent us information on the former building. What became known as the Blair Manufacturing Company got its start in the year 1800 when a local tinsmith used the property to build a new kind of stove. In 1850, Charles Blair came to Berlin from Collinsville and bought the factory to manufacture rakes, hoes, axes, chisels, and other tools like those. The factory burned in 1885.
I'm guessing this haunted house may have been living quarters for a factory manager or foreman at some point, but then changed hands. The story that it was a house of ill repute during the Civil War era was a local rumor reported on by the newspaper article.
Now, either way, the factory ruins and the house are long gone now.
Right.
We only know the general vicinity of where it was. None of these modern homes date anywhere near the right time to the story. Sometimes it's how it goes.
Still, the idea that a house was so haunted that no one could live there very long, man, it just makes you wonder, doesn't it? This haunt was so profound, it even made the newspapers at the time. I think I could live with doors opening and closing by themselves, but the endless cries of a ghostly infant, that's more than I could take.
Sometimes I'm grateful my house is not haunted.
You know what? It would actually help us a lot if it was, Ray. Which brings us to After the Legend, where we take a deeper dive into this week's story. It sometimes gets sidetracked.
Sometimes. After the Legend is brought to you by our Patreon patrons. Our Patreon patrons are the lifeblood that fuels our show. They kick in just $3 per month. That's like buying me and Jeff a couple candy bars for Halloween.
Yay.
And our patrons get early access to new episodes, plus bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear. If you can help the cause, please head over to patreon.com/New England Legends to sign up. We'd certainly appreciate it.
We would for sure. So, Ray, haunted houses, infant babies.
Yeah, I love a good haunt. I'd rather stay away from the kids. I mean, that's what movies are based on. Nothing scarier. I was just watching Insidious.
Oh,
and there's
yeah.
a creepy kid in that. Even Pet Cemetery.
Oh, Gage.
Oh, you remember him, right?
Who could forget?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But so, yeah, anything that has to do with kids is creepy. Because then you have to think about, the fact that they did die.
Right.
And nobody wants to think of a child dying.
Sometimes death is better. Sorry. Oh, man. So here's the other thing that happens. This is a curious phenomenon. Still works today. It worked then. So someone experiences something weird in a house and they tell someone else, hey, there's something weird in my house. Someone else has an experience or notices it. And then the whispers turn to rumors. And then eventually the rumors grow to the point where local press finds out, right? And so I picture some local reporter saying, all right, I'm going to figure this out. And there's one of two ways that the press goes at an article like this. And it was true 150 years ago. It's still true today. They either go and they say, well, let me just be a true objective reporter. People are witnessing something strange, and let me just decode it or just report it.
Yeah.
And that's how this reporter did, by the way. There was no name on the article. Otherwise, we would tell you who it was. But that's how this was reported. Just the facts. This person moved out. This person moved out.
But that doesn't sell enough papers, does it?
I guess not. And it was not a very lengthy article, to be fair. But at some point, it makes the paper, and now everyone's like, whoa, it's a thing.
Yeah.
And then everyone knows the old Blair property, which, again, is long gone. You won't find anything there anymore. The other way is the editorializing. And newspapers did it back then, too. Like, oh, these crazy people thinking there's such a thing as ghosts.
Oh, right.
So I've been on a lot of interviews, especially around Halloween, media, TV news, newspapers, and you can sort of tell which direction they're going with it. And it's funny how reporters, whether they're on TV or otherwise, can editorialize just like with an eye roll.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, it's October. They say this house is haunted, and here's the
It's like
story.
Andy Rooney. I hear Andy Rooney's voice,
Yeah.
and I can see like his facial gestures
Right.
when he doesn't necessarily agree with something.
Yeah.
And he was so sarcastic that his delivery changed your mind on something.
It happens in the news every day. Not even about like paranormal, about anything, right? Like it could be any news article ever or news story ever, especially I'm talking like TV news.
Yeah.
And the anchor's like, okay, well, here's the story. And you're like, oh, I get it. Sorry to, bother you with your
Right.
job. So the editorializing that happens, and they're trying to show personality, and then we turn into like totally slanted news.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
Yep.
so when your personality and you come through, well, then your biases come through.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about with anything.
You absolutely know who's voting for who.
Yeah, right.
Just with an eye roll.
That's right. Like, okay, here's this story. Yeah, so it could be politics, sure, but with anything.
Yeah,
I don't believe in ghosts, or here's a dumb story about a cute dog. I can't believe I have a journalism award and we're doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, well, sometimes I like cute puppies on the news, And,
Sure.
And so whatever it is. So, but that's how this works, is that the reputation grows. Locals know a place is haunted, and then eventually someone from the media, whether it was newspapers 150 years ago, a radio show, a podcast, a TV series, they get in, and then it just grows and grows and grows, and the legend gets huge. That's what happened here. Because the house is gone, and we know that because of the Berlin Historical Society. It was so helpful, by the way. I reached out
great.
and I said, hey, there's this crazy article. It mentions the old Blair property, and I think it said it was like 3/4 of a mile south of the post office, which would have been the post office in 1888, probably
Right.
not the one today. And so, they were helpful.
Did they know right away what you were talking about?
Nope, they didn't know what I was talking about, but they said, oh, in fact, I got caught into an email chain, and they were so helpful. And I wanted to know, is the house still there? Is there some old house? And we learned, but it's long, long gone. It's all neighborhoods. Those houses couldn't have been there more than 30 years, 40, I guess, at the top. So it's all developed, nothing, and there's no way to pinpoint exactly where the property was. We just roughly know. So the other thing though is like, and I'm not going to give you more details than you need, but there's probably a house or two that's about on the footprint of where I'd be curious to knock
What's
on
the number of that house?
I'm not saying nothing, but like you want to knock and be like, hey, ever hear ghostly cries? I'm just curious. And be like, oh my gosh, we do hear ghostly cries.
Because as we learned from Poltergeist, it doesn't matter about the house. It's
Nope.
what's under the house
Right.
that matters.
They move the stones, not
Right.
the bodies.
Right.
Yeah. Which happens all the time, by the way.
All the time.
So many stories I've worked on. What people don't realize is burials long ago. When you see the headstone, you assume the body's right under it.
Yeah.
Don't assume.
And you talked about the catacombs of Paris.
Yeah.
And you talk about that a lot, where they took the headstones off and they just built around the city, and they moved the bodies. I'm sorry,
yeah, they moved the
which
bones.
is similar to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But still, there's no headstones, right? So
No.
you don't know. You're just eating a baguette somewhere,
Right.
and a ghost comes up through the ground and
This is where I was buried.
takes a bite out of it. Yeah,
yeah. No, it's so what happened was when you were digging graves, you might hit ledge or you might hit a giant boulder, and so you move over a few feet until you're not. Not digging into a boulder, and you move over and you move over and you go, oh, well, here we can go down a few feet. So we'll put the casket here. The headstone still stays where it's supposed to be.
Right.
Which is why when someone says we're moving a cemetery, especially an old one, good luck. They're not going to excavate that whole place and look for, there could be a casket 20 feet from the headstone.
Right.
Because they just know, remember all that soft dirt over there? Let's just put it over there when no one's looking.
Yep.
And so it happened all the time. So yeah, when they moved, I did a story once on the Quabbin Reservoir, which they flooded 4 or 5 towns in central Massachusetts to create a reservoir for drinking water for Boston. And this was years ago. I got to talk to a guy who was in his 80s at the time, and he said he was like a young kid right when they cleared everything out of the reservoir area. There's a rumor that they just flooded it with houses and everything. They didn't.
Okay.
I've seen photos.
I've heard the rumors.
Yeah, I've seen my dad when I was a kid. My dad said, "Oh, you could look down and see a church steeple." Right. And so none of that's true. You can see photographs of they cleared every tree, everything. But the guy said, I went to the cemetery and I saw neat little rectangles where they had moved all the headstones, but there were no digging spots for the bodies. And so those headstones have all been moved to a new cemetery not too far away. And I promise you the bodies are still there. Our friends in Boston, think about that. The next time you take a sip of water, they just taste bony.
You may be thinking that you're drinking alone, but probably not.
No,
drinking for 2,
bunch of dead
3,
people.
4, 5.
Who knows how
All
many
those spirits.
That's the thing. It's Halloween next week. Next week is our Halloween
already.
special.
That crept up on us, didn't it?
It did, like a creaking door kind of thing. We're excited. I can't wait for you guys to hear next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's the same thing we did last year.
It's a new,
Well,
a whole new story,
obviously, but
Yeah.
that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep.
A lot of acting involved with that, voices and sound effects, and
It's
not a podcast like we do here.
No.
It's totally different, but it's a fun thing for the season.
Yeah, it's a fun Halloween tradition that we started last year, and we're going to continue it just because we had such a good time with it. So very excited for you to hear that. That'll be next week's episode. Stay tuned.
If you've got a strange local tale that you want to share, please don't assume we've heard it. Most of our story leads come from you. Reach out to us anytime on our website or stop us on the street if you see us. We love hearing about your local tales of the weird.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, New Audio Herbals. Thank you to the Berlin Historical Society. Thanks to our Patreon patrons. And our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
The Bazaar is closer than you think.